Being number one overall in the NFL draft is always a huge deal. You either strive to be number one or you hate to be number one. A lot of the time you want to be the best player, but you don't want to be drafted by a bad organization. The amount of pressure that comes with the number one overall pick is sometimes insurmountable, but other times they exceed expectations. Today I'm going to cover the top 5 best number one overall draft picks in NFL history. Quick mention, I am only going to be covering from the NFL merger, which is 1970 through 2008, where the most recent retired person is. Unfortunate for Andrew Luck and O.J. Simpson, who barely missed the cut. Also, I will not be including any offensive linemen in this video, as I feel they are incredibly hard to rank compared to the skill position players, but if I was, Orlando Pace would more than likely be number 2. Coming in at number 6 for my honorable mention, I have Terry Bradshaw. Now, hear me out before you get mad or anything else, because I know that's exactly what the first thing is. He was a winner, there's zero doubt about that, but his passing skills weren't necessarily the best, if you want me to be honest with you. If you don't like it already, you're not going to like who's at number 5 right above him. Anyways, Bradshaw was an amazing winner, winning 4 Super Bowls. I'm not going to take that away from him at all, but if you think he deserves to be higher strictly because of the Super Bowls, you're just simply wrong. Bradshaw is only making this list because he was an MVP winner and a 4-time Super Bowl winner. Other than that, he doesn't deserve to be any higher. But speaking of MVP, let's talk about his MVP season. He would play 16 games this year, throwing for 2,915 yards and 28 touchdowns. Oh yeah, and he only had a 56 completion percentage. His career completion percentage is 52%. That's just wild. And arguably his best season, the year after winning MVP, he would play in all 16 games and have a little over 3,700 passing yards and a 55% completion percentage. This season is more respectable, but again, a bad completion percentage. To be honest, I don't even know if he deserves number 6 over the likes of Drew Bledsoe, but I have him here strictly because he could win, and also because I needed to explain why he wasn't any higher. Bradshaw would finish his career with 3 Pro Bowl appearances, an MVP award, 4 Super Bowl rings, and 1 first-team All-Pro. In my personal opinion, he was a product of a great team and dynasty. His career stats are just barely under 28,000 yards, 212 touchdowns to 210 interceptions, with once again a career completion percentage of 52%. Coming in here at number 5, I have Carson Palmer. Now, Carson Palmer deserves to be here, and I'm sorry if you don't think he does. You need to do a little bit of research. He was a certified underdog, at least in my opinion. He's a lock at top 5. When I tell people that Carson Palmer would have won MVP if not for Cam Newton, I get funny looks, but it's the truth. He finished second in MVP voting in 2015. Carson wouldn't have the best rookie season in Cincinnati, but in just his second season, he would have 3,836 yards and 32 touchdowns with a completion percentage of 67.8%. He finished 5th in MVP voting that year and 4th in Offensive Player of the Year voting. He would lead the Bengals to the playoffs, but unfortunately would get hurt right at the beginning of the game. Palmer would have 6 seasons of over 4,000 passing yards and would have 5 seasons of just under 3,000 passing yards. Injuries to Palmer were the reason he would have less passing yards in all 5 of those seasons. In Palmer's best year, 2015, he erupted for 4,671 yards, 35 touchdowns with a completion percentage of 64%. He would once again finish second in MVP voting and would lead the Arizona Cardinals to the NFC Conference Championship, where they would unfortunately get slaughtered by the Cam Newton and MVP-led Carolina Panthers. Through his entire career, Palmer would be a solid starter. While it wouldn't be Hall of Fame-worthy career, he's still arguably an all-time great. He would have a modest 46,247 yards, 294 touchdowns to only 187 interceptions, and have a career completion percentage of 62.5%. In here at number 4, I have John Elway. Now, don't get me wrong, John Elway was absolutely incredible, and the only thing holding him down from going up a little bit is his completion percentage of his career. Now, you could completely swap him with number 3, and I would not be mad at you at all. I have bias towards number 3, but for now, I definitely think he deserves at least 4 or 3. Either way, Elway would get drafted in 1983 by the Denver Broncos, and he would play his entire career there. He wouldn't really break out until his 3rd year, where he would throw for 3,891 yards and 22 touchdowns. But he would have 23 interceptions and a completion percentage of 54%. And he would only have 1 season of over 4,000 yards, but would only have 4 seasons of under 3,000. Again, due to not playing in all games those seasons. Elway had a pretty bad problem of throwing accurately, having a career completion percentage of 56.9%. In his career, he would win MVP in 1987, finish top 5 in MVP voting 3 other times, run up for the award in 1996, and finish top 5 in Offensive Player of the Year voting 4 times. He'd get elected with 9 Pro Bowls, 3 second-team All-Pros, and he'd finish with 51,475 yards, 300 touchdowns, but would have an unfortunate 226 interceptions. He would win 2 of 5 Super Bowls, winning Super Bowl MVP in 1998. Fun fact, Elway lost 3 straight Super Bowls, then proceeded to win back-to-back almost a decade apart. What holds Elway back, like Bradshaw, is having a poor completion percentage. Unlike Bradshaw, Elway didn't win 4 Super Bowls. Coming in here at number 3, I have my absolute favorite player growing up, and the only player I can say I watched and I loved, and that is Eli Manning. Now, I'm going to tell you, Eli Manning had his cons, and by no way could I say he's a mile better than John Elway. In fact, I think they're identical players, but Eli Manning just had a better career completion percentage. That's pretty much it at the 2 Super Bowl runs, as we all know. I will list his big negative right now to get it done and out of the way. He threw a lot of interceptions, like a lot. He's 12th all-time in career interceptions, which is to be expected when you have a long career, but if you compare it to his draft mates, Big Ben and Rivers, he threw a few more interceptions. In fact, Eli had 2 seasons where he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Eli won exactly 500 in his career, winning 117 games and losing 117, which is crazy. Eli would never win any hardware and not even receiving votes for any hardware. His worst season would come in 2013, where he would throw 27 interceptions to 18 touchdowns, which is honestly one of the worst seasons I've ever seen by anyone. Despite his worst season, Eli would be known as an Iron Man, starting 210 consecutive games, which is third only to Brett Favre and Tony Gonzalez. But Eli would also be incredible at times. His best season came in 2011, where he threw his staggering 4,933 yards, with just barely missing the 5,000-yard club. He also had 29 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. Eli won 2 Super Bowls, both of which he dethroned the New England Patriots, which I don't want to dive too much in depth to because I have future videos covering those. Eli would finish his career being elected to only 4 Pro Bowls, and that's it. That's literally it. He would be a 2-time Super Bowl MVP winner, though. He finished his career with a completion percentage of 60.3%, 57,023 yards, which is 10th all-time, 366 touchdowns, which is also 10th all-time. But he would also throw 244 interceptions, which is 12th all-time. Eli was incredibly clutch, though, so much in fact that he is the second most game-winning or tying touchdown throws in the 4th quarter or overtime, with 44. As we all know, the playoffs, not bad, especially when you realize his best receiver ever quite literally shot himself. Coming in here at number 2, we have arguably the greatest pass rusher ever. Not in my opinion, but based off the sacks statistic. And that is going to be Bruce Smith. Now, you can't have Bruce Smith any lower than 2. I feel like 1 and 2 is pretty locked in. No matter what, Bruce Smith deserves to be here. Quick taste of how great he was. He would have 13 seasons of double-digit sacks. Smith would have a decent rookie season, having 48 tackles and 6.5 sacks. He also recovered 4 fumbles. He would be a huge reason why the Buffalo Bills would go to 4 straight Super Bowls and win. Wait, they had to at least win 1, right? Nope. Sorry, Bills fans. At least you had Jim Kelly and Bruce Smith, right? Anyways, Smith would have multiple great seasons, but none quite would match his 1990 NFL season. He would have a whopping 19 sacks, 101 tackles, and 4 forced fumbles. Bruce Smith was a walking nightmare. Smith was 6'4" and 262 pounds, and he was a big guy. He spent 19 years in the NFL, which is again quite astonishing. He played from 1985 to 2003. During his time, he would play for both Buffalo and Washington. And I just found out that he and Champ Bailey were on the same Washington team, and I find that quite hilarious. He would wind up finishing his career with 200 sacks, which is most all time, 1,224 combined tackles, 15 fumble recoveries, 43 forced fumbles, and 7 pass deflections, with even 2 interceptions. Be ready because this is quite a bit. He would finish top 5 in MVP voting once, win Defensive Player of the Year twice, finish top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year 7 other times. He would get elected to 11 Pro Bowls, 8 first-team All-Pros, and another 3 second-team All-Pros. Talk about incredible. Some honorable mentions that didn't make the cut are going to be Earl Campbell, Drew Bledsoe, and Keyshawn Johnson, all of which are great in their own respective ways. They just barely missed the cut. I mean, who else could this really be? Let's be honest here. At number 1, the best number 1 overall draft pick of all time has to be Peyton Manning, right? Like, there's no other way it can't be Peyton Manning. Peyton would play 17 seasons in the NFL, which is, again, quite astonishing. And try this. Peyton would only have under 3,700 yards once in his career. And even that was not only his final season, but a season in which he only played 9 games in. Peyton would come back from a neck injury in 2011 that many thought would end his career, and won an MVP 2 years later. Oh yeah, speaking of MVP, he would win 5 of them. Peyton got drafted in 1998 and would throw more interceptions than touchdowns in his first season, which had many fans at the time wondering if he was even worth it. We'd find out real soon. In just his second season, Manning would throw for 4,135 yards, 26 touchdowns, while cutting his interceptions almost in half. I can't even pick a singular year in which it was his best because there's just so many. Although, I guess if you want to be honest, 2013 was his best, by quite a wide margin too. In 2013, Peyton had the greatest single season ever by anyone, and you can't prove me otherwise. He would throw for 5,477 yards, which is an NFL record by 1 yard, 55 touchdowns, which is an NFL record by 5, and only 10 interceptions, and would have an astonishing 342.3 passing yards per game, NFL record. Here's a side note, guys. He was 37 years old. That's the greatest year ever. I'm sorry. While the Broncos would go on to get smoked in the Super Bowl this year, Manning would win his 5th and final MVP. Speaking of Super Bowl, he would win 2 in his career, one with the Indianapolis Colts and the other with the Broncos. He'd be Super Bowl MVP in just his first win with the Colts, though. Peyton, you could argue, is the most talented QB ever, and I couldn't fight it at all. He would win 5 MVPs, finish second for the award another 3 times, and finish top 5 another 2 times. He'd be elected to 14 Pro Bowls, 7 first-team All-Pros, and 3 second-team All-Pros. Manning ended his career with a total of 71,940 yards, which is 3rd all-time, 539 touchdowns, which is also 3rd all-time, and a 65.3 completion percentage, 4th all-time if you're taking active players out. Last but not least, a passer rating of 96.5, which is again 4th all-time if taking active players out. Oh, and he finished with only 251 interceptions. He did all this, and he missed a year of his prime. Peyton Manning is the best number 1 overall draft pick ever. I'm so sorry for the terrible quality of audio. I don't know what was going on with my microphone and my whole setup. It just was not flowing at all. And I tried to fix this as much as I could in the after, the production, the post-production, but it just did not work no matter what I did. So unfortunately, I'm sorry about the audio. I hope you guys did enjoy either way. And if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment down below who your favorite player is and why you agree or disagree with me.